Penn State defeats Ohio State 28-9 in Rec Hall. As that was going to be a surprise that Penn State, they ended up winning this dual meet, but we all expected that. Now, there were some results that were controversial, definitely ones that we did not expect, and we're going to talk about that on this edition of Locked On Nittany Lions.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
That is right. You are Locked On Nittany Lions. Thanks so much for making us your first listen and watch every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Zach Seyko, bringing you all things Penn State sports coverage. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, the official sports book of Locked On. And right now, new customers, when you joined today, you will get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more is a winner. All you got to do is visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. We welcome him back. Nittany Sports Now beat writer for football, men's basketball, wrestling. That is Joe Smeltzer. You can check out all of his work at NittanySportsNow.com and also on X, formerly known as Twitter, at his handle below. And if you're not already, become an everydayer, subscribe to Locked On Nittany Lions on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Join the conversation. Let us know what you thought about today's dual meet. Joe, I think it's fitting to lead off with this one since it was the opening match. Of course, we're going to talk about just about everything we saw between 125 and heavyweight. Bernie Truax gets pinned, but I think we should open up with 125 as that was controversial. Joe, I don't know how many people, how many Penn State fans and spectators are going to like me saying this, the Vinny Kilkeary versus Braeden Davis match, but I don't know that the refs got that call correct. I don't. Look, I'm all for Braeden Davis winning. I support Penn State sports just as much as the next guy, of course. That's why I host this show here. But I don't know that the refs got it right. And I was sitting back saying, man, Ohio State's going to open up this duel with a nice win from Vinny Kilkeary, who wasn't exactly the anticipated starter. And I've watched him, so I covered high school wrestling and saw him, and he's from Pennsylvania. And he's very talented. So for him to go toe-to-toe with Braeden Davis like that was already impressive, but he got robbed of a victory, I think. But it went in Penn State's favor. But you saw it too, and we went back and forth a little bit. You agree that it's a takedown.
Yeah, absolutely, Zach. And you mentioned Penn State fans not liking it. I think they'll be just fine with you saying it, at least based on the Facebook comments I read for our article on it for Nittany Sports Now. I'll have to check to see what the update is, but there were 28 comments, and I didn't see one of the 28 comments that said that the officials got it right, because
okay,
it's universally agreed, I think, and Twitter backs us up too, that was just a botch. And for whatever reason, Andy Stein, who was at Rec Hall for this meet, Andy Stein tweeted that it's very hard to get something overturned in wrestling, and I think there's substance to that based on, because watching it in real time, it looked like it was a takedown. And then did Ohio State, I don't think Tom Ryan even had to throw a challenge brick for that. I think that just went to review, and everybody was expecting, I think, it to be awarded the other way and for Ohio State to get that win. But it didn't happen that way. And with all due respect to Penn State and Braeden Davis, they got away with one there. I don't think there's any doubt about it.
Yeah, and Kilkeary gave it his all. I mean, that's a return home, essentially. So he's not too far from Penn State. He's from Greater Latrobe. Again, I watched this kid dominate at the Pennsylvania high school level when I was covering high school wrestling and seeing it at regional, seeing it at states. And it's just like, man, he's going to be something special wherever he ends up. No room at Penn State because, hey, look, Braeden Davis is right here. I'm thinking that, in the case of home mat advantage or whatever you want to call it here, I mean, Kilkeary's coming in with this underdog mentality, right? He's coming and saying like, hey, I'm returning to Pennsylvania. Who knows if he was overlooked for Penn State? Maybe he picked Ohio State before the Nittany Lions and Cale Sanderson. That's not, I don't know that for sure. But this is definitely that, like, I got nothing to lose mentality. I also look at it, you shouldn't be trying to get that match winning, that bout winning takedown with 10 seconds to go. And that's, Braeden Davis is playing some good defense there. But if you're going to wait that long to go for the shot, I don't want to say you deserve to lose, but you kind of set yourself up for that situation to put it to the discretion of the refs.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Zach. But yeah, it's just I don't know. It's kind of hard to knock Kilkeary because the plan worked. Whatever he came in his plan with, to be down 4-3 in the final seconds, Ohio State would have taken that any day of the week, and I think Tom Ryan and company would have taken a close loss to the number 3 guy. Actually, Flow Wrestling has Braeden Davis at number 2. A close loss to that guy for an unranked freshman, that's something you take any day of the week. But the way that it went down, it's kind of hard to be encouraged. And I'm sure Saturday, Sunday, they're going to say it a different way when kind of the heat wears off from it. But with it happening that way, it's kind of hard. That overshadows, I think, from Ohio State's end, just how good Kilkeary was, because both him and another PA guy, Rocco Welsh, later on against Mighty Carter Starachi, he held his own with him. I don't think anybody thought Welsh, who was from Waynesburg, where I went to college. He did not go to Waynesburg University, but he is from Waynesburg and went to Waynesburg Central High School, great wrestling powerhouse. And he really, that's one of the tougher matches Carter's had in quite some time. So yeah, the 28-9 score kind of looks dominant, but Ohio State, I think Ohio State made Penn State look human, and I don't know if any team has done that up to this point this year.
I couldn't have said it any better than that. Exactly. It made Penn State look human, look vulnerable, because the talk around this entire dual meet, and when you come in with that, again, it is still 28-9 against a top 10 dual meet team. I know where Ohio State ranks when it comes to the tournament rankings, but dual meets, Ohio State is top 10. And for Penn State, they still, score looks very pleasing, but Ohio State was, the talk that I had, there was the potential for Penn State to sweep this entire dual meet, win all 10 bouts. I said all but 8 to 9 of them were guaranteed, and then you get a pin at 184 in favor of Ohio State. Really, Kilkeary should have won at 125. But I know that the box score is going to say something completely different. And then Rocco Welsh, challenges Carter Starachi when he's, and I saw Welsh too at the Pennsylvania high school level. And I said, again, same thing. It's like, man, he's going to be special. Does he end up at Penn State? Maybe or maybe not. But a lot of these Ohio State, or I don't want to say a lot of them, but some of these Ohio State wrestlers are being from Pennsylvania. They just had that revenge mentality, right? This was personal for a lot of them. Kilkeary. I know Feldman didn't do that well against Kirkley, but Feldman in the same boat. And Welsh, they had this, they had something on their shoulder tonight, and it was a very good showing. You already mentioned the Rocco Welsh, Carter Starachi of 4-2. A win's a win, but definitely Welsh, nobody should sleep on Welsh. He's a very good, talented freshman for Ohio State, and definitely will be around the Big Ten title and the NCAA championships at that weight class. I do want to go to 184, and I see in the comments from Jeff, Barr should go at 184. So, Bernie Truax gets pinned by a wrestler that he should beat 99 times out of 100. I guess, Joe, this is that 100th time. I felt like he walked into that. It's not like the Ohio State wrestler had him cornered or anything. I feel like Truax, and a veteran, right? A graduate transfer of all wrestlers, walks into a pin like that against an unranked opponent. Did you see something differently? Because I just felt like somebody with that veteran experience should not be falling into those kind. I mean, it wasn't even a trap. He literally walked in. He walked into that pin. There's no other way to say it. He gave him that victory.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Zach. And yeah, you look at the match, he was up 9-4, and you're thinking, okay, at least he's going to get a decision, maybe even a major. And then, as you said, he walks right into that. But there's no reason for Penn State to even consider making a change at 184. As good as Josh Barr is, and he's going to be, I think, Carter Starachi predicted multiple national championships for him. And I think what he did in high school and what he's shown in a brief sample at Penn State, that would back that up. But this is a three-time All-American you're talking about at 3 different weight classes. Cale's not going to make any rash decisions based on not even one match, just a few bad seconds that Bernie Truax had. So Penn State's going to be fine at 184. This is just one of those bleep happens situations, and yeah, it's disappointing for sure, and it's something that can't happen definitely next week at Iowa, because that's going to be obviously 1 versus 2 is always interesting. But Bernie Truax is a pro. He's a veteran. He's proven himself. He's done just about everything aside from winning a national championship, and they're going to be a-okay at 184. I wouldn't read too much more into this bout than just a bad instance and a rare blip for a solid veteran.
So you would not put Josh Barr in to start the remainder of the season. I mean, that's
no.
We have Jeff in the chat that says differently, but I truly believe that Josh Barr is talented. But the reason Bernie Truax is in the starting lineup is because when they wrestle in the mat room, the events that we don't see, the matches, the bouts that we'll never see, Bernie Truax is beating Josh Barr, or else it would be a different starting lineup.
Yeah, and Kale's obviously he's not afraid to go with the freshman at all. He's not. It's not like he has a veteran bias. Otherwise, Levi Haynes wouldn't have been in the national championship match last season. Braeden Davis probably wouldn't be doing what he's doing, and you saw tonight with Kale burning Tyler Kasak's red shirt, even though he has a pretty capable guy behind him in Dylan Evans, but. Kale's going to wrestle who he feels the best guys are, and even with tonight going the way it did, you're going to need a little more than that, I think, to tell a veteran three-time All-American who transferred from the other side of the country to be a team player ride the bench. That's not going to happen. Josh Barr, as I said, his day's going to come. He'll have a lot of days, good days coming ahead, but they have no reason to stick with what they're doing at 184. Especially, are you going to make that change ahead of Iowa in Iowa City? I don't know about that. I don't know about the timing of that either.
Well, there's still more to discuss. I mean, we saw Aaron Nagal lose, right? At 133. Ohio State got off to a strong start. And the match, the bout of the dual meet was number 2 versus number 3. A look at possibly the Big Ten championship at 141. Maybe even the national championship at 141. Jesse Mendez and Beau Bartlett going to sudden victory. How about that one? We're going to discuss on the other side of this break. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, the official sportsbook of Locked On. And happy Super Bowl Sunday to everyone who celebrates from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And if you're like me, Super Bowl Sunday is all about scoring the best seat on the couch, grabbing your favorite football snacks, and how about placing some super bets? FanDuel has so many ways for you to end the season with a W or 2 or 3 or maybe even more. Not only can you bet on who will win Super Bowl 58, but FanDuel also has bets for which players will score a touchdown, how many points will be scored, and so much more. New customers, when you join today, you will get $200 in bonus bets. That's right, $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. That is FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started today. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. And the Locked On Podcast Network is making history. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering each and every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Aaron Nagal loses at 133 to Nick Bazakis, who is very talented. Beau Bartlett made a point about him since they were former teammates on the same national team. But Bazakis came in and dominated early, but I appreciate Nagal showing some fight and coming all the way back. It ended up going to a review, but I said, man, the refs are getting a little too active here early in this dual meet, Joe. But at 133, Nagal loses another one. Again, he lost that once out at Michigan, and now he loses at home against Ohio State. Is there a point of concern now? I say no, because from what we know, is he was ill. He was battling an illness, and maybe he might not be 100%, or been in the process of recovering and maybe just reached 100%. But you're going up against a feisty Bazakis, who is his ranking does not match how good he actually is. Again, another wrestler that I expect to see around the Big Ten title at that weight. Maybe that's a rematch for those two. But I'm not pulling the alarm on Nagal either in the case. Now, Truax, a little bit different because we didn't hear anything about him, but we know that Nagal was dealing with an illness and might not be 100% at this point. But hopefully, this full week to prepare for Iowa, that can change.
Yeah, and I think I don't know about concern as much with Nagal as it is impatience, because you want to have that quote unquote him moment that these new Penn State wrestlers have had. The way Davis at Oregon State and Messenbrink, I think in that same duel meet, both of those guys really kind of put their foot down and said, I'm at Penn State, I'm here, I belong. And not that Nagal necessarily hasn't done that, but I don't think he hasn't had a win that has really been eye-opening yet. But the reason I wouldn't say it's a concern is, for what you mentioned, Zach, who knows what his health is, but also you look at last season, I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but it's not like he was winning every single match in Minnesota, but he got to the Big Ten championship and became an All-American as a true freshman. So I think this might just be a type of guy who wrestles at his best when you get into late February, you get into March, and that's when he really kind of blossoms and gets you those points in the Big Ten and national championships. So I think the guy was going to be okay. This is a guy that's still only a sophomore. The alarms aren't sounding for me, but I think impatience is probably the word to use with him, because he hasn't really had that statement level win that guys like Messenbrink, Davis, and even Tyler Kasak have so far this season. And it's reasonable to be a little impatient with that. But as far as concern goes, I don't think there should be much of it, if any.
And then there's 141, Jesse Mendez versus Beau Bartlett, number 3 walking into the home of number 2. And Beau Bartlett gets the victory. It goes into the extra period. It goes into sudden victory. And then there was the controversial call that the refs were a little too trigger happy, that they counted off the takedown too quickly. And therefore, again, it's the Penn State bias. Again, at 125, I have to agree with you. Vinny Kilkeary got that takedown. But at 141, Beau Bartlett gets the takedown. And like I said, it's just nice to see a glimpse into the future. That is the Big Ten title between those two at 141. And then possibly at the NCAA championship now, Real Woods is coming up for Beau Bartlett, 1 versus 2 there. But the announcers made a good point on the Big Ten Network. The 141 champion is going to be from the Big Ten. It's just a matter of who catches fire more, Jesse, because they're all going to catch fire. But who has the most fire? Jesse Mendez, Beau Bartlett, and Real Woods. And now Beau Bartlett, that's good. Beau Bartlett has really established himself as a consistent wrestler. He wrestled up to start at Penn State, was at 149. That's not his weight class, but the fact that he was able to hold his own, now he slides down, and he is just on an utter tear, finishing 3rd a season ago, currently ranked number 2. Just the mountaintop for him is Real Woods. So anything that, Joe, that you picked up on from Beau Bartlett's match that you said, okay, I feel good, because going into Iowa against Real Woods, who is number 1 and has wrestled longer than him, I imagine that Woods would be the favorite in that head-to-head matchup still. But is there something you saw about Bartlett that he says, no, maybe this one might come back and this is a 50-50 thing?
Yeah, I think you definitely have to give Bartlett a shot next week, because Real Woods he's beatable. We saw that last year in the NCAA championships, right? He was supposed to be the guy to win that 141. Didn't happen that way. But yeah, coming into this match, I would have probably picked Mendez to win because Zach, I think you were at the media availability Tuesday at Rec Hall, but so what Bartlett was saying, where it was kind of revealing, right? Where he was saying that over the past month, he was finding himself forgetting that when he goes into opposing venues, the guys he wrestles, that's their Super Bowl. Just not just going against Beau Bartlett, but going against Penn State in general. And Beau Bartlett, on the other hand, took that as just another day at the office, and he felt that kind of hurt him. He didn't mention this meet specifically, but I'm sure it was something he was referring to going against Michigan a few weeks back when he was going against the number 25 wrestler in the country and got a pretty unconvincing 7-5 win. So with him saying that, it kind of made me wonder, because it's kind of hard to get out of that mindset and then go right into, okay, this match is a bigger deal for me. But he was obviously able to do that and got that sudden victory win. And as far as that takedown went, if it's a judgment call and it goes to review, we talk about in football and really any sport, it's gonna whatever was called was gonna stay. And I think if you're going to criticize the officiating for anything, it would be maybe they should have just kind of let it play out and see if Kale wanted to issue a challenge. My one buddy who's a huge wrestling fan suggested that. Maybe I could see that, but overall, I think that was the right ruling, and and yeah, it was a lot different than the 125 takedown that wasn't. I think if they got it wrong, they didn't get it wrong by much in this case. But in any case, it doesn't take away from what Beau Bartlett did. I think he really proved himself, because even though Beau was slightly higher ranked, I think most people would have picked Mendez to win, and Beau got the win. Beau proved him wrong. So
still to come, Tyler Kasak, true freshman like Braeden Davis, and the first year wrestler at Penn State, Mitchell Messenbrink. So all these newcomers for Penn State continue to dominate early in their careers, whether it's been Carter Starachi, Aaron Brooks to set the example, and now picked up by Levi Haynes, Messenbrink, and now Tyler Kasak. That's a senior in D'Amelio, and Kasak wins convincingly. We're going to discuss Kasak's performance, plus Levi Haynes, of course, continuing to rack up wins, but Mitchell Messenbrink just on a tear as well. I want to compare, contrast the two. We'll do that on the other side of this break. And remember, if you're not already, become an everydayer. Subscribe to Locked On Nittany Lions on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast for the latest analysis around your favorite Penn State sports. We talk everything on the show: football, recruiting, men's basketball, men's hockey, wrestling, as in this case. And if you want to check out Joe Smeltzer's work, you can follow him on X, formerly known as Twitter. You can also keep up with the recaps and articles and analysis over at nittanysportsnow.com. In this final segment, talking a lot about the younger wrestlers here, and then a little bit of a glimpse at over at Iowa, and Penn State's got a full week to prepare for that. But Tyler Kasak at 149, the way that I won't go as far to say that he dominated D'Amelio, but he certainly looked in control against somebody who is a senior, a top 10 wrestler, and Kasak's been going back and forth. Is he in the starting lineup? Is he out of the starting lineup? Who's going to win that wrestle off? And finally, all those questions have been answered. Beats teammate David Evans in a wrestle off at that open tournament, and then responds with this kind of victory, because I feel like there's that lull moment, especially for true freshmen. And this just shows how disciplined Cale Sanderson's wrestlers are, because for someone as young and inexperienced as him to go for, you reach a mountaintop. Hey, I finally fend off my teammate that's battling me for the starting spot. And there's probably that relief, right? You say, "Ooh," you take a deep breath, and then you got to go in and you wrestle a top 10 senior at your weight class, probably someone you're going to see again. And Kasak wins, not by 1 or 2 points, but wins convincingly in this case. And that's what is most impressive to me. Not the talent, the potential, because we knew about all that, but the maturity.
Yeah, and you said that all well, Zach. It really kind of makes me think of Levi Haynes last year a little bit, right? They had a big, that was a BJC duel against Michigan, where Haynes had his red shirt burned, and he won that match, and the rest was kind of history, man. As February heated up, Haynes just kept winning. He won the Big Ten title, got that big victory over Payne Robb, then obviously beat Payne Robb again in the semis, and got to the finals before he fell to the much more experienced Austin O'Connor. And I don't know if Kasak's going to have that type of run, but the parallels are there, I think. And this is a guy that now we know what Penn State's going to do at 149. We know that Kasak is the guy, maybe he's gonna have a big run in him come Big Ten championships, NCAA championships, and get himself. I think he's at least an All-American. He's got to be one of the top 8 on 149 for sure. And then I wouldn't rule out him making a Final Four appearance at all. He could definitely do what Levi Haynes did last season, and it's a solid trend that Penn State's having, where true freshmen are kind of coming onto the scene. Braeden Davis has been doing it, and Kasak's doing it too. And they have 2 young guys, and you can really almost consider Messenbrink one of them too, because he only had 2 college matches under his belt coming into Penn State. But you still got your veterans, Srirachi, Brooks, and Kirkfleet. But it's really been a great mix of youth and experience on this Penn State team, and that's why it took until early February for them to look human at all. So,
and then, as you mentioned, Levi Haynes and Mitchell Messenbrink, they continue to rack up the wins. Messenbrink seems to be, it doesn't seem to be, he is the all more impressive as of right now. I want to explain why that is, because are there concerns about Levi Haynes or what's going on? He's like, well, he's only winning by this much and he's not dominating. He looked better as a freshman. That might be true, but they have different perspectives now. Levi Haynes has commanded that respect. He has that season under his belt. He made it to the finals. It's different when you're the number 1 wrestler and you got to go and protect something, right? When you're playing, I'm not saying that Levi Haynes is wrestling defensively, but you are protecting that number 1 status. A win's a win, and you just got to survive and advance in this case. But Mitchell Messenbrink, from his perspective, he still has more to prove. He's ranked 7th in the country at 165 at this point in time. Maybe that changes in the upcoming week, Joe. But for Messenbrink, who was not respected to the same degree at the beginning of the season, transfers in, who is this guy, right? I know people knew Messenbrink, the diehards especially, but to see him emerge as this serious contender for the national title, he still has more to prove every single time he goes out on the match. He's got to wrestle Mikey Caliendo next week against Iowa. So you see, whereas we all expect Levi Haynes to be there at 157, we still don't know how far Mitchell Messenbrink can go at this time. I believe that he'll be there. He's definitely a top 4 wrestler at this point, but he can be the aggressor because he really doesn't have anything to lose. He has a lot more to prove, whereas Levi Haynes does have something to lose. He has something to protect in this case.
Yeah, and Zach, I think you laid that out perfectly. And I think from Levi Haynes' end, this kind of goes back to that Beau Bartlett quote that I mentioned earlier, right? When Haynes wrestles, it's very easy for him now that he doesn't have the same chip on his shoulder that he did as a true freshman. He's the guy that everybody knows. He's the guy that everybody's going to be watching. No matter who he wrestles, he's the number 1 guy. You think Austin O'Connor is gone. Haynes was the next best last season. That combined with the natural progression from freshman to sophomore year, that should make Haynes the favorite, and that number 1 ranking certainly backs that up. So, as you mentioned, he has a lot more to protect. And going back to the Bartlett quote, you also have that mindset where whoever wrestles Levi Haynes, that's their biggest match of the season, especially considering that he is the number 1 guy. And I can't speak for Levi Haynes because he hasn't specifically came out and said that he's kind of fallen into that issue where he's taken something as business as usual, where his opponent doesn't take it that way. But I think that's generally just something that these higher ranked guys, Beau Bartlett, Levi Haynes, could fall into. And I don't know if that's what's happening with Levi Haynes. I don't know if I think it's definitely possible too that he's wrestling a more defensive style and playing not to lose as opposed to playing to win, which I think Mitchell Messenbrink is definitely playing the win and is winning convincingly. I think it's a combination of those things, but I don't think there's any reason for Levi Haynes for there to be any concern surrounding Levi Haynes. And he hasn't wrestled the type of match that Beau Bartlett had tonight with Jesse Mendez. Like I can't think of who the highest ranked guy he's wrestled has been, but he'll see higher ranked guys come Big Tens, whether it's a rematch with Peyton Robb, and then obviously come nationals. But yeah, I think the combination of just being more defensive because you're the number one guy, because you have the target on your back, as well as kind of falling into taking it as another match and the other guy, it's his Super Bowl. I think that combination, then whatever number of things could be leading to Levi Haynes not winning as impressively. But yeah, I think when the time comes for him to crank it up, he's going to crank it up. He had his best wrestling in March last season, and I see no reason why that shouldn't be the case again.
And in the case of Messenbrink, and I know he's going to work on this, right? It's the same thing. Truax has only, can learn from the pin. But Messenbrink, at least for right now, just not as effective. Like, he's so much better on his feet. He's so much better when he's in that attacking position. And you can do this right now against the competition. That's why the match against Caliendo in Iowa is going to be key to really see, okay, where is Messenbrink right now? Because a top 5 wrestler, like a guaranteed top 5 wrestler, is going to be able to fend off of some of those Messenbrink attacks and then be able to control him on bottom. I thought that Messenbrink would have an easier time escaping, and it felt like his opponent just was able to just ride him a little bit too much in this match. So they'll work on that. They'll fix that. But these are going to, like, the matches, the competition is going to continue to increase. We all know that. And the reason we're not focusing on 197 and 285, Aaron Brooks and Greg Kirkblade, is because it's business as usual. Water is wet. Yep. Aaron Brooks is the number 1 wrestler at moving up from 184 to 197, and he is still just dominating the competition. Same with Greg Kirkblade, compared, veteran wrestler against a freshman from Pennsylvania, may I add, for Feldman. But that one, which everyone said, why aren't you highlighting this one? It's going to be a closer match, but the veteran and Kirkblade should win. Well, dominant, major decision. That's why it wasn't, I highlighted 125, 133, 141 for a reason, and look how close those matchups were. But now we got to look forward to Iowa here, and that one's going to be a 9 p.m. Eastern time start over in Iowa City. And Penn State had a close one the last time they were there, but then again, Big Ten Network started off the broadcast this time around saying, is this the greatest Penn State team assembled? Is this the greatest team assembled, period, in college wrestling? Penn State has got a massive target on its back. Iowa is going to come into this one, the number 2 ranked team, a lot of ranked less wrestlers compared to what Penn State's seen lineups with a different combination of people, but like Penn State with all these top 10 high ranked wrestlers, Iowa has just as that to couple, and then they don't have to travel. Home mat, home court, whatever you want to, home field, it all matters. It does. And I'm not saying that's going to throw Penn State off, but just know that environment is going to be pretty intense when they return to Iowa in 1 week's time. When you start to do a little bit of scouting, a little bit of previewing, Joe, what stands out to you?
Yeah, the 141, 1 versus 2. I think Bartlett's going to have the most hyped match of the night coming in, like he did this night. He's not going to be the favorite against Real Woods, and that's huge, because if Bartlett wins that match, he becomes the guy to beat at 141 for the national title. So that's certainly something to look at. And Iowa Michigan's going on right now. I'm going to put that on mute. But overall, I mean, Penn State's Penn State, Iowa's Iowa. These are perennially the top 2 teams in America, and that's the same way again this year. Michigan is beating Iowa 13-0 right now. We're only 5 matches in, but that's certainly something to keep your eyes on. So. And it's interesting, too, going into Iowa, you think about these guys like Messenbrink, like Truax, like the true freshmen, obviously, who have never wrestled in an environment like Iowa. Michigan Gate was a good start. That's a good environment, Chrysler is, but it's not Carver Hawkeye Arena. And assuming Iowa comes back, because I can't envision Michigan getting this win. That'd be crazy. But Michigan isn't what Iowa is either. So I think it's the guys, Srirachi, obviously, Brooks, Kirkfleet, they're going to be fine. But
Right.
definitely want to watch these younger guys and see what they do in that environment, Zach, which you just mentioned. And then individually, you got to look at 141 as well. I want to see how
Mm-hmm.
Aaron Nagal responds
Yeah.
because he obviously has had two tough losses in a span of a few weeks, losing at Michigan and then losing tonight. But yeah, it's going to be interesting, and I'm very interested to see how this night ends up because I was not expecting Michigan to sweep the first four matches of this duel.
Right.
But
Right.
yeah, this is why this is the biggest stage in college wrestling, at least in terms of regular season duel meets, is Penn State against Iowa. It's going to be a fun one for sure.
I guess the one that, aside from 1 versus 2, right? Real Woods versus Beau Bartlett. I'm intrigued to see Drake Ayala against Braeden Davis. Again, Davis got caught. Davis shouldn't have finished with a win tonight. And I hate to say that from the Penn State perspective, but Kilkeary gave him a match. And that's an unranked Kilkeary. I know how talented he is. I can attest to it because I saw it at the high school level. But Davis, and he defeated DiAgostino of Michigan. And then DiAgostino beats Ayala. It's unpredictable. It's truly crazy how anybody can win on any given night, any given day, whatever, at these tournaments. Okay. But Ayala and Davis, who is going to be better in that moment? Ayala, who sat and learned behind Spencer Lee for the longest time. I'm trying to get a better read on how good are these true freshmen or these first year wrestlers for Penn State, because Mitchell Messenbrink looks great. Braeden Davis looks great. Aaron Nagal has seen some speed bumps here, but he's looked great other than that, right? Just to name the few, and Tyler Kasak has looked great. But now they're going to get real tests throughout for the remainder of the season. Iowa, Rutgers, Nebraska, and then it all really matters when they go into the head-to-head tournaments. I hate that there's no dual meet tournament in college wrestling. I think that's something for wrestling fans are robbed of. I would love to see an actual tournament of dual meets going through the Big Ten. If it extends the season, I mean, I'm all for it. If it being that I enjoy wrestling, but besides the point, it gives you a better understanding of where they all are. And Iowa's welcome. Now, also, Iowa doesn't have all of its starters. Remember what's going on there with the gambling and everything, the scandal, allegedly, right? I have to preface it that way. I don't know entirely what's going on.
Him being out is huge.
Yeah. So they don't have everybody. They're not at full strength. And so you're not getting your traditional Iowa team. So Penn State wins again. I know, a hot take, right? Flaming hot take here. Penn State's going to beat Iowa. Penn State still has a distance on Iowa this year. They're the number 2 team in the country, but it's a distant second. And I just hate that the Hawkeyes will not be at full strength, because we are being robbed as wrestling reporters, wrestling commentators, wrestling spectators and fans of a true Penn State versus Iowa number 1 versus number 2 matchup, because Iowa doesn't have everybody. And it's like, okay, that's nice. Penn State's going to win, but I'd like to see what they would do when Iowa has everybody available and nobody out due to different scandals, man.
Yep. And another big question is, are we going to see at 174 Carter Srirachi against Gabe Arnold? Because that was a big thing in early February last season. Arnold's, I think Carter's quote was, if he can kiss enough butt to get into the starting lineup. And Arnold, I don't know if he's kissed any butt, but he's had some pretty good moments this season. Hasn't lost yet, and we'll see what Team Brands decides to do. But from a drama standpoint, that's what we want to see at 174.
Talking trash, and Carter Srirachi certainly backs it up with 61 consecutive wins. I think that's something that I failed to mention, that yes, he got the 4-2 victory over Rocco Welsh, but 61 consecutive victories. This lineup is phenomenal. It's going to win a national championship as a team with all the tournament points. It's a matter of how many wrestlers can make it onto the podium, be named All-Americans, and so much more. And that conversation will continue to evolve as we move on through the remainder of the season. But still some good dual meets. The Bryce Jordan Center one coming up against Rutgers on a weeknight. Okay.
And then a Monday of all things.
Yes, a Monday Bryce Jordan Center match. I would have preferred this Ohio State one, but I know they've had Ohio State recently. I think they're doing that to change things up. And then you have Nebraska as well. So Penn State still has some entertaining dual meets on the way. The comment section, I checked up on it. I appreciate everybody's feedback about the dual meet and the conversation people had. People are talking about Michigan and Iowa going on right now. I got a score update here because I don't have it in front of me. 16-0. Michigan is up on Iowa. Michigan takes the first 5 matches. So Iowa can't take Penn State, the kings of college wrestling. So Jeff has said it well in this chat. And like I said, I appreciate all the feedback. This was funny. Earlier, I saw this one. Watching Will Lewan wrestle is like watching grass grow.
I hate to be critical of an athlete, but he's not wrong. I mean, we all saw that Haynes match with Lewan. That was just that was not the most entertaining thing. And that's another example of why not to worry about Levi Haynes is. Probably his top-ranked wrestler was a guy that is known for not being aggressive, to put it kindly. So
Penn State defeats Ohio State 28-9 in Rec Hall. Good duel, but Ohio State put up a fight. From the opening talk was that there was the potential to have the entire dual meet swept in favor of Penn State, and the Buckeyes came into Rec Hall and I think performed admirably to that point. 1 week from now, Penn State's got to travel to Iowa to take on the Hawkeyes, 9 p.m. Eastern time, and that will be on the Big Ten Network. And, of course, over the course of the week, Locked on Nittany Lions is going to have all the previews, analysis to talk about that and recap it as well when it's all said and done. Everyone, go check out Joe Smeltzer's work. Special guest on the show today over at NittanySportsNow.com. That's NittanySportsNow.com. And you can follow him on X, formerly known as Twitter, for all of his reports and analysis, because he does more than wrestling, does football, men's basketball, and so much more when it comes to Penn State sports like this show. If you're not already, become an everyday or subscribe to Locked on Nittany Lions on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. That's going to do it for this one. Thanks so much for checking out the live show and be a part of the upcoming coverage as we discuss more about Penn State sports here on Locked on Nittany Lions.